Brothers and sisters, in these last couple of days, the church has given us readings that focus so much on the Eucharist. So we've been reflecting on the Eucharist a lot in the last couple of days. And today also, the gospel we have also invites us again to deeply think about it and reflect on it. But my reflection is based on the first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, about the conversion of St. Paul, and also about the persecution that happened during the times when Paul was still a Saul. And I titled my short readings, Courage and the Fruits of Forgiveness in Light of Persecution. In the year 1994, in the month of April, in the country of Rwanda, over 1 million people were killed in a mass genocide. And we've read about this in a lot of books have been written and movies and everything. Tensions between two ethnic groups or economic classes, really, because they all share the same language and the same culture. It's just people, one is a cattle-keeping group, the other one are people who till the land. But they speak just the same language. Exploded into a mass massacre and the destruction of property. It was just extreme. I've been to Rwanda, and you cannot believe what happened in that country. So the country was reduced to an ugly shell of its former self, and the survivors of the genocide reduced to mere zombies that walked around without knowing who they were anymore, where they were, what they were doing, what had happened to them, why their mother is not here, or why their husband is not around. This is how psychologically affected people were when all of this happened. Neighbors had turned to their neighbors and killed them because of an economic or ethnic differences that they had. Fellow Catholics who sat in church, that's the way how you seated right now, and worshipped together every Sunday and attended the same groups, turned on their brothers and sisters and just killed them. Just like that. In that place, hatred had sort of taken over love. That's how everything appeared. In the neighboring country, by the way, Father James Brasa, who is going to lead our program tomorrow, is Rwandan. Him and his family had to flee that country to come and live as refugees in Uganda. And tomorrow you'll be hearing a little bit about his story and the death of his father during the genocide, and how he had to go and look for the body in these piles of bodies. So you'll be getting a little bit of that tomorrow when he's sharing his story. In the next country, which is Uganda, the neighbors, a 20-year war ravaged. For 20 years, in a certain section of the country, just a war went on, and it was endless. Millions of people were in refugee camps. All of them huddled in all these tents, and they were living in those places for 20 years. Hatred had sort of taken over love in that place. Holy Cross has just opened a parish in this particular place of Coach Goma, as they call it. When the war was sort of like coming to an end, something significant happened in both those places. Both the communities in northern Uganda and the communities in Rwanda decided to change everything. They said, we are not going to send anybody to prison. We are going to invite the perpetrators and invite the victims of victims of these circumstances to come together, sit together under a big tree or in a classroom and talk through this difficult situation. So that is what happened. They brought everybody, the perpetrators and the victims of the crimes, to sit under the shades of a tree or in a classroom, talk through this, what had happened, establish the truth, work towards the healing of both the victims and the perpetrators of these crimes. And right now, both in Rwanda they established what they called the gacaca systems. In my country of Uganda, they established what they call the mato put system, just to talk through. We don't want to take anybody to prison. We want to bring healing to you who did this, and the victim who suffered all of this violence that happened. So that is what they did. They had a very difficult conversations. But then they were able to repair themselves and to bring healing to the victims and also to the perpetrators. By the time somebody kills another person, that person is so sick. They are not themselves anymore. They are very, very broken at the core of their lives. Right now, everything is quiet. There is, people are coming back together again. You can be able to see people live with people who killed their mothers and their fathers. And now they continue on going into the same churches, and something just too dramatic has happened in those societies. And it is one of the most powerful acts of courage that I've ever met in my life. Because when such a thing happens in your life or in your community, you just, the natural thing is just to cut out people. But they didn't do that. So there is a lot of healing that is happening in those places. In the first reading that we had today from the Acts of the Apostles, we hear Saul, a great persecutor of the disciples of Christ, still breathing with threats and murder against the disciples of Jesus, on his way out to Damascus to go and arrest and kill people. But then he's knocked off his horse. And Jesus visits one of the people that Saul was supposed to be arresting and killing, and he asks him, go to the home of such and pray for Saul. And Ananias, as we had in the reading, said that, was very clear to the Lord about the circumstances. He said, Lord, I've heard about this man. We know how much evil he has done to your people. He's in town to arrest all who believe in you. And you're asking me to go out and just go pray for him and meet him? This is not a very good idea. But somehow the Lord convinced Ananias to go and pray for Saul, and he did, and Saul became Paul and became a great evangelizer in our church, especially to the Gentiles that we have. Well, how the people in both Rwanda and Uganda handled the difficult situations, and how Ananias also handled the situation of Paul, defies all human logic. It defies anything, any reasonableness that you can be able to think about. Yet when the people in these difficult circumstances listen to the promptings of God's Spirit in them, and they were able to respond and act the way how God was inviting them to ask to do, the results were just unbelievable. We had healing, we had reconciliation, we had conversion happen, because people took the courage to listen to Christ and respond to the invitation that he gave to them. So today, in our reading, we have a challenge too. Is there a family member? Is there a neighbor? Is there a co-worker who has mistreated you in the past or hurt you so much that you almost lost your mind, your peace, your health, or even your career? Is there a person like that who has ever been, whom you've ever encountered in your life? And have you ever considered forgiveness, just the way how like Christ did on the cross, the way how Ananias did for Saul, was hunting for them, trying to kill them, or even how the two communities that you listened to did in both Rwanda and in Uganda? The Lord is challenging us to work for healing and reconciliation and forgiveness. It's not easy, but we have a lot of examples, both in our church, but even in our contemporary times, that it can also be effective. May the peace of Christ and his harmony and his grace be with us so that we can be able to move ourselves also in this same direction. Amen.
Amen.